So many. All these here once walked round Dublin, faithful departed. The thoughts of Leopold Bloom when they buried Patrick Dignam in Glasnevin Cemetery. The day was Thursday, June 16th, 1904. The day on which time stood still in James Joyce's novel, Ulysses. The sun shone, there was a light breeze from the sea, and the weather became warmer in the afternoon. Nothing much was happening in Dublin. In New York's East River, 500 people died in a fire on board a steamer. Children were thrown overboard and women trampled to death. Near Port Arthur, the Russian army was retreating before the Japanese. But nothing much happened in Dublin. Early summer sales, a court case, births, weddings, and funerals. In a city of more than 250,000 people, thousands were dying from consumption. The streets were fouled with spit and horse dung. There was hunger, syphilis, and alcoholism. But in such matters, Dublin was scarcely different from any European capital. Dublin was the second city of the empire. And in the gay years that followed the Boer campaign, it became a society playground. The season preceded the London season, and the viceregal pageantry rivaled the glamour of the court. Dublin had the most advanced tramway system in Europe. The last of the horse trams had vanished, and the electric trams that went clanging from their terminus at Nelson Pillar bore the names of expanding suburbs: Rathmines, Rathfarnham, Kingstown, Donnybrook, Sandymount, Blackrock, Phoenix Park, Palmerston Park, Ranelagh, Rathgar, Drumcondra, Portobello, Harold's Cross, Dollymount, Dalkey. In the distant suburb of Dalkey, James Joyce, a hard-up graduate of 22, was teaching in a private school overlooking Dublin Bay. Joyce was a slim young man with weak blue eyes, shabby clothes, and a bitter sense of humor. He was born in one of Dublin's middle-class suburbs, the first son of a family that was then prosperous. He could remember his childhood in Bray, a small watering place further south of the city than Dalkey, where fashionable ladies in high hats and large skirts strolled along the esplanade. Here it was that his aunt, an abandoned bride, joined the family and argued passionately against Parnell, the Irish leader who had been betrayed by his people, as Joyce was later to feel himself betrayed. He had begun to write about his adolescent years on the poor north side of the Liffey, the years during which his father's fortunes waned and financial debts accumulated as the family moved from one house to another with speed and secrecy. Joyce Sr. used to say he had 16 or 17 children. In fact, he had 10. The city consumed the boy as he was to consume the city in his books. Daily he walked the maze of streets and reeking lanes, observing the Dublin that sought, so he believed, to humble his youth. As his conscience as an artist developed, Joyce rejected the Catholic faith, the Jesuits who had educated him without payment, his family, his friends, and his literary acquaintances who were busy with the Celtic revival. In Ulysses, he symbolized the arid desert which Dublin had become for him, in the story of two old women who climbed the Nelson Pillar to spit plumstones on the citizens below. On the afternoon of June 16th, 1904, James Joyce may have taken a tram from Dorking to the city and bought a 5-penny ticket, the dearest ticket for the longest journey. He was on his way to meet a red-haired Galway girl named Nora Barnacle at the corner of Merrion Square. He had first seen her on June 10th in nearby Nassau Street, where she worked in a small hotel, and stopped to talk to her. She didn't keep their first appointment, so Joyce wrote her a letter. Nora finally met him on the evening of June 16th, and they went walking through the city. Nora Barnacle had left school at 14. She was a witty girl, but she had no interest in books. Though she was to be mistress and then wife to Joyce for 37 years, she never read Ulysses, the novel of many words in which he was to crystallize the day of their walking out. I always told Jim to give up writing and become a singer, she would say. Joyce was fond of singing, both in public and in private. The Kingstown Pavilion, not far from the Martello Tower of Ulysses, was a popular platform, and Joyce once tried to secure an engagement there. The songs of the period are woven into the novel, and Joyce made Molly Bloom a concert singer. 4 months after their first meeting, James Joyce and Nora Barnacle sailed from Ireland to begin life together, first in Zurich, then in Trieste. Joyce took his departure with a dramatic air of finality. But he was to make 3 further visits to his native city, all unsuccessful, all soured by imagined plots and intrigues. In his exile, he would test his memory with visitors from Ireland by naming in order the shops in Dublin's principal streets. In Ulysses, Joyce had forgotten nothing and invented nobody, except perhaps the olive-skinned advertising man, Leopold Bloom, warm in his black clothes on that June day. When the novel was published in Paris in 1922, Dubliners, catching a rumor of Bloom's Odyssey through the city, asked, "Are we in it?" And they were all in it, each as apparent to himself as his reflection in a mirror. The unforgiving exile had paid off his old scores, real and imaginary, but mostly imaginary. Ulysses revealed a crowded world of Dublin's middle and lower middle classes who must have been surprised to learn that their behavior, as described by Joyce, was regarded by critics as blasphemously obscene and a litany of filth. Dublin had been too real a place for Joyce to view it through the Celtic mists of the Irish literary revival. In exile, he continued to be obsessed with Dublin and his imagined betrayers who walked its streets. This was a Dublin frozen in his memory, just like his attitudes and beliefs. On the day that time stood still, the day that separated the youth from the man, the day Joyce fell in love. June 16th, 1904. How many, thought Mr. Bloom. All these here once walked round Dublin, faithful departed, as you are now, so once were we.